fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going in the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god!
big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
And a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SimSpeed TV network. It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. It's the night where everybody gets to channel their inner Daniel Ricciardo and just send it. Tonight, we're heading to the Nürburgring for round number 3, season number 5 of the Just Send It Sim Racing series presented by Logitech G, custom track art and owned game streaming. And it's the third round of our 5th season, and we're actually joined, or I'm joined by my third different co-commentator for this season. We had Camera Dance in round 1, Jay Kennedy in round 2, and making a very welcome return to the commentary box tonight. It's a very good evening to Bo Albert. How are you, Bo?
I'm going very, very well indeed. Thank you very much, Lockie. Of course, we are now at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit for what I think is going to be a very interesting race indeed. We're running in the Chevrolet Corvette C8R, just very recently brought out to the iRacing platform. So it's a brand new addition. A lot of drivers are still getting to grips with it, so it's a little bit of an unknown for these drivers as to what to expect tonight. But when it comes to GT racing, usually we get some very good racing, great overtaking, and usually a little bit of drama as well, because these are a car that typically it's very hard for the driver to make too much of a difference, because of course they do feature some driver aids such as traction control, which does sort of box the drivers in a little bit for pace. But if the drivers know how to use their brake pedal effectively, no ABS on these cars, so that could be the deciding factor when it comes to lap times.
We've seen those cars competing in the World Endurance Championship, including the recent Le Mans 24 Hour. And I believe you've turned quite a few laps in these cars, Bo. Give us a bit of a sense of what they're like from a driver's perspective. Actually, before we do that, we'll run you through the grid. It's Steve Jansen on pole, ahead of Ross Rizzo, back to Michael Healy. Our championship leader, Ryan Wood, out of position 4, back then to Christian Lindbaum. Last week's race winner, Mitchell McLeod in 6th. Kobe Williams, Dylan Shepherd, Brenton Hobson and Marcello Rivera completing your top 10.
Eddie Beswick will kick things off from the 6th row of the grid with Mario Vartanian in 12th place as well. Matt Lupino, Andy Carey and Joel Shigovazira in the top 15 positions on the grid. Daniel Yeaman will kick things off from 16th place. Jay Cool, Jonathan Bykoff, Aidan Brand and Tyson McAvoy in the top 20.
Back then to Jaden Russell, Pete Dunham, Simon Black, Nick Scaraju back for another run tonight. Tim Mitchell, Jackson Griffith, back to Ian Quast, Jamie Giroux out of position 28, John Quast and Elaine Matheson in position 30.
And it will be our last car on the grid, a 31-car field, being Lee Burley. He will start from the back of what is going to be a very short pace lap indeed. Here at the Nürburgring, the cars don't actually do an entire outlap. You can see the pace car already rolling on the back straight, and the back straight is all we will go to, because the pace car will begin to pull off around the final chicane, and from there, control goes to the driver of Steve Jansen, who will inherit the pole position in car 23. He's got the very fast drivers beside him, including Ross Rizzo, Healy behind, Ryan Wood, championship leader behind as well. It's going to be a very interesting run in towards turn number 1. It's fast, it's a big braking zone that leads into a whole bunch of slow corners, Lockie.
Indeed, it is very, very technical, this Nürburgring circuit. Plenty of overtaking opportunities as well, but the safety car peels off into pit lane, so it's going to be up to our pole sitter, Steve Jansen, to control the pace of the field at this double file rolling start. He puts his foot down and he gets the jump over everybody else. Ross Rizzo tucks into position number 2 there and looking to try and get a bit of an advantage from the draft. Pulls to the outside and is going to challenge for the lead as they head down into the hairpin.
Oh, big contact. One of the cars gets into Rizzo. and that is a nightmare to his race. So it will be Jansen leading from Kobe Williams. Is in the pack is just neck and neck, side by side, some cars getting a little squirrely as well into the stadium section. Another car goes around, that's Mitchell McLeod, and that is a nightmare for the world's best sim racer. Complete carnage in the stadium section here. Only a few cars are going to get away unscathed. Mass chaos here at the start. One car, Matt Lapino, finds himself on his roof.
I would have thought that because we had a slightly more compact field tonight that we might have been able to get through the first lap without so much chaos, but not the case. Quite a few cars involved in incidents in the first few corners. Christian Lindbaum, another driver who got tangled up there and went for a rotation on the opening lap. So it is Michael Healy who moves up into third position now behind Steve Jansen and Kobe Williams.
Yes, indeed. Some very good starts from the likes of Williams and Michael Healy as well. In fact, that good start for Kobe Williams has just been ruined by a slowdown penalty through the Schumacher S, and that is surprisingly easy to do, and don't be surprised if we see more of that. He loses more positions now to Eddie Beswick and Brenton Hobson, who makes a return to the series as well. Great to see Hobbo out on the field, but he's not making life too easy as he's trying to hold off from Kobe Williams, who's now recovering from that slowdown penalty. Has the slipstream of the car in front. This is not a chicane you'd like to go side by side. Hobbo is loose, and Hobbo is into the tyre wall. A nightmare for the 88, and well, he's going to be losing a lot more than 88 positions, I think. That's a disaster there for him on the opening lap.
Wow, so much chaos on the first lap of this race, and Kobe Williams, who was running inside the top three positions, gets shuffled way down the order. We look back to Andy Carey. He's in 7th position at the moment. He finished on the podium in the opening round of the season at Olsen Park when we were in the Mazda MX-5s, and he makes a nice move down on the inside of Mario Vartanian heading into the first corner. Dylan Shepherd involved in that contest as well in a very sideways moment there. And I think that's Vartanian and Carey as they negotiate their way through turns 4 and 5, and it will be Shepherd who will just about pick up that position.
Yeah, great move there from Dylan Shepherd to help get himself into that spot. Mario Vitanian as well, trying to hold on to some positions. Currently in 6th place. That's a not too bad start for him, up 6 spots from where he started in this race. So he's a mover and shaker as well. So lots of drivers are able to avoid the chaos and really find some spots through the opening laps. I'll just take a look, and it is actually Jay Cool who currently sits in the 5th spot, who is our biggest mover and shaker, up 12 spots from the start of the race. If we look at Christian Lindbaum, who's trying to find a way past Tyson McAvoy into this long sweeping right-hander, tries to get the exit, and that's a very hard thing to do, because even if you manage it, you find yourself in this very tricky situation through the Schumacher S, which is very difficult to go side by side. It is possible if you're brave, but it requires cooperation from both parties.
So, as is typical for Just Sender, there will be a pit stop to be taken by every car in the field, as that's the car that's gone off the road there, just approaching the right-hander before you turn onto the back straight. That was Aidan Brands there, losing a couple of positions to both Tyson McAvoy and Christian Lindbaum. But to complete the point, everybody will have to do a pit stop. Random number of safety cars as well, could be anywhere between 0 and 2 safety cars. And speaking of pit stops, Christian Lindbaum is going to dive into pit lane out of position number 12 and get his stop done nice and early.
Yeah, absolutely. There could be random safety cars in this race as well to help bunch things up, and the drivers have to factor that into their pit strategy, because if you get caught out with the safety car deployed and you have not taken your pit stop, you're going to be in for a very tricky race indeed, because of course in iRacing, when a safety car comes out, the pits are closed until the field is bunched up. So a lot of drivers you'll see already electing for a very early pit stop, some to repair damage as well, but for some it's literally just trying to get themselves into clean air and make sure you get the pit stop out of the way before any chance of a safety car comes out.
So give us a sense then, Bo, of what these cars are like to drive, because I know that it's been a very, very recent addition to the iRacing platform, but I also understand that you have completed some laps in the Corvette.
Absolutely. For those that know me quite well, I'm an absolute Corvette racing fanboy, so when this car was first released, I was straight onto it. And I suppose the interesting thing to say about this car is just how stable it is. For a mid-engine car, normally when you think of the Ferrari and the Ford GTEs, typically they're very, very oversteery indeed, especially on corner entry. But the Corvette is very, very stable, and I think that took a lot of people by surprise. The biggest deciding factor in the Corvette, more than anything, that what sets it apart to the other GTEs, is the brakes. This car, you have to be very, very careful on the brakes. It is very easy to over-rotate, and maybe John Quaice has found a way to over-rotate himself in the stadium section. We'll get a replay up on screen, and that is not a factory Corvette C8R. That is a very, very damaged one. And we'll see what happens into this very slow speed corner, and he's just going to unsettle the car. And it's just... that was an odd one, actually. He lost that very late in the corner, and this car does have traction control, and Lee Burley finds himself off in the walls as well. So we get a second replay, see what has happened here. It's the number one car on track. Turns it in a little bit loose on entry, turns it in for the right-hander, and just really just didn't turn in for the right-hand part of the corner, got on the grass and went straight on.
I wonder if that was a bit of a hardware issue there, Bo, because that looks like a bit of a weird incident with that car pretty much just going straight ahead in that section of the racetrack. More pit stops coming up here at the moment, and at the moment the highest place of the cars that has done a pit stop is going to be the car of Ross Rizzo. He's scored in 20th position overall at this stage.
Yep, and for anyone that knows Ross Rizzo, he is a master tactician. When it comes to fuel saving, when it comes to being able to get a strategy as optimized as possible, he is a genius at that. And he needs to really focus on that in this race, because of course he was involved in that first corner incident, lost a whole bunch of spots after challenging for the race lead into turn 1. So if he's going to have any chance of getting up on the order from 19th or 20th place there, he's got a lot of work cut out, and strategy is going to help him out big time.
So Steve Jansen, the race leader, by 1.4 seconds ahead of Michael Healy. Ryan Wood up in the top 3. He's our current championship leader. Worth pointing out too, Bo, that Just Send It is actually an official championship for season number 5. So in previous seasons, we've not kept an official point score. I've kept one in the background, which has been purely unofficial. But this season, we do actually have an official Just Send It championship. And the winner of the championship will receive a trophy at the end of the season thanks to custom track art.
Yeah, and that'll be very, very cool indeed. And also to see who was one of the more versatile drivers, because that's what this series is all about. It's not about consistency and maximizing, you know, one car or one track. No, it's about maximizing all of them and being able to adapt, being able to be versatile in a front-wheel drive car one week and then a rear-wheel drive touring car the next. It's always a little bit different than Just Send It. It's about variety. It's about challenging the drivers to adapt to something different, and that's what creates the exciting racing. That's what gives us the mixed-up fields as well. So I think in terms of a championship, yes, we do have the championship leader right now doing very, very well in Ryan Wood, currently up in 3rd place here again. But you'll often see some very mixed-up results in Just Send It, and that's a big part of why we love it.
There is Ryan Wood. So, like I say, currently the championship leader. He was the round winner in the opening round of the series at Oulton Park. He finished on the podium again last week in the Skip Barber car at Phillip Island. And once again, he's running in a top 3 position. So, Ryan Wood potentially in a good position to be able to extend his championship lead.
And that's what you need to do. Sometimes you don't need to be the person winning all of the races, and sometimes you don't need to be the person when the safety car gets deployed, which it has done here on just lap number 5 at the Nürburgring. And the interesting thing here is how many of our race leaders have pitted so far? The answer, almost none of them.
So this safety car's come at a very good time for the likes of Ross Rizzo and Brenton Hobson, because they both did very early pit stops. So they're potentially going to jump up somewhere near the top of the order when everybody else comes down pit lane. So those drivers who opted for the early pit stops, or perhaps were forced into making an early pit stop after sustaining some damage earlier in the race, they're going to find themselves in a very strong strategic position.
Absolutely, and I did say that a little bit earlier. For those drivers that were involved in that early incident or perhaps a bit out of position, that's what you need to do. You need to be able to get yourself into a good strategic position, and as you can see on the dash of Steve Jansen, and that little dash is required in all FIA WEC cars, so that is just to let the drivers know of what the track state is. You can quite clearly see it said SC safety car, and that is exactly what Steve Jansen, Michael Healy, Ryan Wood did not want to see as well. So I hate to use the term, but championship implications for Ryan Wood, because this is going to put him a long way back, and more crucially, losing a lot of points if he can't make a comeback.
Really love the detail with the interiors of these cars that iRacing have put together. They've got the rear view camera there as well that you can see. in the centre of the dash there, so that'll be giving the drivers some useful information about what's going on behind them. And like you said, Bo, there are some driver assists, including traction control, available in these cars as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just to help the driver. You know, of course, GTE isn't so much a gentleman driver category, but it is also just to help keep the drivers in control, because these cars, of course, typically not doing 40-minute races. They're usually doing 24-hour races at Le Mans, you know, a 6-hour race at Circuit of the Americas or Spa-Francorchamps. So for these cars, it's about endurance. It's about being as consistent, as safe as possible over 1, 2, you know, maybe even sometimes triple stint on a tire. So for these cars, safety and being as drivable as possible is a big factor, and traction control goes a long way towards that.
So in terms of GTE cars on the iRacing platform then, so we've got the Porsche 911 RSR, we've got the BMW M8, we've now got the Corvette. Any other GTE cars on the iRacing platform?
So we do have the Ford GTE car as well, which did sadly retire itself in 2019, and we also have the Ferrari 488 GTE as well. So the good Ford versus Ferrari battle is in iRacing as well, but it is a total of 5 GTE cars, which is one of the biggest car counts for any series. I think only GT3 actually has a higher car count for a certain class than GTE does. So it clearly shows when it comes to iRacing, it is a very popular class, and when we get exciting racing, it's not hard to see why.
There's Daniel Yeaman, so he had fallen off the lead lap, but gets the opportunity to get the wave around and go past the safety car to get back on the lead lap. We see that Daniel does a lot of racing in various types of GT cars. He was a strong performer in the Speed Cafe GT3 A-Series that we had earlier in the year. He was also the winner of our competition that we ran through the Sim Racing Oz website, and he scored himself a simulator experience on the Dream Racing Simulator, the one that's owned by Thomas Randall down in Melbourne, which by all reports he thoroughly enjoyed as well. So good to see Daniel Yeaman as part of the field tonight.
Absolutely, and he's getting his lap back, so hopefully we can see him fighting at the front very soon. But as you can see, there's not just 1 or 2 cars coming, there is an absolute flurry of activity coming. And so far I've not seen a single car elect to stay out. We now do have our first driver. I think it might actually be the likes of Ross Rizzo, and indeed it is. And Brenton Hobson as well just behind. So a couple are now beginning to stay out, but as expected, the vast majority are diving into the pits. And I mean, if you're going to have a slow pit stop here, you are going to lose so many positions on track as well. So for these drivers, it is actually quite a very important time, even if it's a very slow speed time in the pit lane, because you can make or break your race right here, right now. And you can see Steve Jansen has led this race from start to finish. He's not even going to be in the top 5 out of the pit lane. He's still there, while so many are already leaving. Steve Jansen has gone from hero to zero, unfortunately, in the pit lane. He is still waiting. So is Michael Healy. So first and second from the very start of the race have absolutely gone to the back now.
What is the story there? Because that's a massively long pit stop. So Steve Jansen there, 60 seconds he spent total time in pit lane, 36.9 seconds stationary time. You compare that to Dylan Shepherd, for example. He was only stationary for 6.3 seconds. So I'm wondering if the likes of Steve Jansen and Michael Healy have elected to take tyres, or if perhaps they've just miscalculated fuel. That's very strange.
And Michael Healy has actually gotten out of the car as well, so something's not gone well for Healy, but I would not be surprised if Steve Jansen has in fact decided to take tyres, and if he has, I struggle to justify that myself. I said a little bit earlier, these tyres are sometimes designed for triple stints around a circuit. A 40-minute race is not going to impact the tyre performance all that much, so for someone like Steve Jansen to elect to take tyres has put himself massively on the back foot, but who it has really helped out here is the guy who tried to take the lead into lap 1. Didn't quite work out for him, but it has now, Ross Rizzo.
We saw that he went for that big, bold outside move, didn't we, heading down into turn number 1 on the opening lap. It didn't come off and he got turfed off the racetrack, but because he had damage and because he had to make the early pit stop, that ended up being a blessing in disguise, because he got his pit stop out of the way where a lot of other people didn't, and he now finds himself in the lead of the motor race. Brenton Hobson in second position ahead of Christian Lindbaum. Tyson McAvoy in position number 4 at this stage. So The other thing there on the tyres as well, Bo, you talk about the fact that they're designed to go quite long distances. You'd almost have to say that the disadvantage of now having to be on cold tyres is going to outweigh any advantage that you might get by being on fresher tyres. So I really struggle to see what Steve Jansen was aiming for by opting to do the tyre change there.
Absolutely. All these drivers under safety car right now will lose a little bit of temperature in their tyres, but they'll have a heat cycle through them. So when the race goes back green, they will be able to get up to temperature a lot quicker. Whereas for the likes of Steve Jansen, he's come out of the pits on completely cold tyres with no tyre warmers being enabled for this series. So for him, he's really up against the back foot because he's going to have to wait a lap, or maybe not a lap, but at least half a lap for those tyres to come up to temperature, come up to pressure, and provide optimal performance. So for him, that's a disaster for him. But Ross Rizzo, he's got the field locked at 90 kilometers an hour. Green flag in the start marshal's hands. We are about to go lights out, and away we go for the second time tonight. And Ross Rizzo drops the hammer.
And you can see some action going on a bit further back in the pack already as the drivers spread out and look down the inside of one another, trying to make up some early spots with this race start. There's Kobe Williams. You can't miss him in the bright green car, going for a big move through the middle of the field, very deep under brakes, and manages to get the car stopped, thankfully, before making contact with anyone. That was a bold restart for Kobe Williams, but it has worked to his benefit. A bit further up the order, there's Simon Black, who we see involved in some administration for a lot of events on the iRacing platform. Good to see him actually participating in a race this evening.
And we're about 3 or 4 wide through the stadium section that time, and everybody escaped completely clear. We had a couple of close moments involving the likes of Adam Brands, who actually now rotates and will unfortunately go around right as I mention his name. But I have to say, a massive credit to all the drivers on the opening lap there. That was very, very close quarters racing, and they all pulled it off perfectly.
Aidan Brand not pulling it off so perfectly though, and unfortunately as he's tried to get back onto the track, he's cleaned up Nick Scaraju, who is back in the pits with some damage. A bit of a shame for Nick, who sometimes joins us in commentary for racing events here on the SimSpeed TV network. There's Steve Jansen. He's managed to make up quite a few spots since the restart. Most of those spots he's gained have been because of incidents that have occurred ahead of him. We're riding on board with Ryan Wood at the moment, who's just in behind Jay Cool. We saw that Jay Cool and Simon Black had contact a bit earlier in the lap as well, which saw Simon Black getting shuffled back a few spots. But for Ryan Wood, he's got his mind on the championship as well as the race here. He restarted in 11th. He's up to 7th, make that 6th as he goes down the inside of Jay Cool into the final corner.
That's not a part of the track you would normally expect to see an overtake, so very authoritative there by Ryan Wood to make that position work. And Jay Cool going to look for a little bit of redemption here, gets a little squirrely on the brakes as well, but sadly not able to pull it off, so that will be Ryan Wood's benefit. And he will now continue to go on a charge. I think I heard a bit of a crunch there at turn number 1. Mario Vitanian getting into some beef there with Simon Black. Those two exchanging panels as they go side by side into the stadium section. Again, a big lunge there from Vartanian as they will go through this next section of track. But we'll get another look as well. Steve Jansen, our former race leader, laid on the brakes and bang into the back there. And sadly, both cars will rotate. That was Eddie Beswick there who made the contact. But again, Simon Black and Jonathan Bykoff having a fantastic scrap, and Simon Black will be the beneficiary there.
Oh, Brendan Hobson off the road as well. Now, he was running up in second position behind Ross Rizzo, so he was battling with Christian Lindbom. This was the contest for positions 2 and 3. Let's see if these two cars have come together. You can see that Christian Lindbom in the DuPont livered car was on the attack, and I have a feeling, yep, there we go, nose-to-tail contact between the two cars, and that's what's seen Hobbo getting fired off the racetrack.
Not nice at all for Brendan Hobson. We'll get one more look at it, and you'll just see the DuPont car getting a little too close for comfort, right under brakes here, and bang, at the worst possible angle into the rear right of his car, and sadly that sent Hobbo right off the road. And Ryan Wood, championship leader, gets deposited off the road, down to 10th place, almost gets hit off the racetrack as well. You can see here, he was on the attack, he wanted the position, and what a gaggle of cars it was. Moves over to the middle of the track, and he just turns across the nose. He didn't have the clearance there, Ryan, and sadly, He will drop down the order. He didn't lose too much time. It could have been a lot worse. But for Ryan Wood, that is not how he wants to protect a championship lead.
There's been a lot of incidents in this race, hasn't there? And you just feel that maybe it's a bit of inexperience with some of these Corvettes drivers maybe not having a lot of experience in this car yet because it is such a new car and still really learning where the limits are. We look a bit further back in the pack to Mitchell McLeod, our race winner from last week, who is now battling with Ryan Wood, the other driver who's been a race winner this season, and more contact just behind. That's Steve Jansen's just been able to squeeze through there. Andy Carey, who was on the podium a couple of rounds ago in the Mazda MX-5, is embroiled in that battle as well. But all of these incidents in the mid-pack, they are allowing our race leaders to pull clear. Ross Rizzo now with a 2.6 second advantage over Dylan Shepherd, who's moved up into the second position ahead of Christian Lindbaum.
Oh, Marcelo Rivera with a big move there on Jay Cool. Tried to get it unlocked to the rears at the last moment, and very lucky to keep it on the road is Marcelo. But he'll keep on fighting and try and get back up. He has to get past Kobe Williams, who inherited the spot there. And for the second time today, when I mentioned Kobe Williams, he gets a slowdown to Schumacher S, and he's now going to make contact with the driver of Tyson McAvoy. They'll go side by side through this long right-hander, which leads onto the back straight, and it's actually the driver behind of Mario Vartanian who gets the best run out of all of these cars, so they could go too wide or even more into this final chicane, depending on how risky they want to be. Contact, and on the grass, they're both going to go off, and Vartanian maybe, no, doesn't quite take advantage, but Ryan Wood will 3 wide into the final corner, and job done for the championship leader.
That was great awareness and anticipation there for Ryan Wood, but Kobe Williams there trying to run side by side with Mario Vartanian into the chicane. That's never going to work through there. A bit of a shame, you would have to say, for Kobe Williams, because he'd done such a good job to work his way up into the top 5 after the race start. It was actually Tyson McAvoy, I beg your pardon, who got spun out there as those two cars tried to go side by side through the chicane, and Vartanian was the driver who was sort of the piggy in the middle there. But there's Kobe Williams, who's now under some pressure from Mitchell McLeod, and our early race leader Steve Jansen, who's managed to find his way back up inside the top 10.
He has indeed, and we'll see what kind of pressure he can apply to the two in front. But right now, the aggressor is certainly Mitch McLeod, and that was way too much aggression. And Steve Jansen will get a 2-for-1 deal at the supermarket, but for McLeod, I'm sure race control won't be too happy with that.
My housemate Brian Vanderwacker, who made his Just Send It debut last week, is sitting next to me and watching all of this unfold, and he's just shaking his head at some of the incidents that are happening at the moment. As you can imagine, there's so much going on. Poor Jay Kennedy, our producer, doesn't know what camera shot to go to because there's been action on just about every corner.
Absolutely, and sometimes a little bit more action than we all bargained for. It's been a very chaotic first couple of minutes in this race. 25 minutes down, still 15 to go. So for these drivers, there's still a lot of time to try and attack one another. Marcelo Rivera is on the back of Jay Cool. He wants to get that 4th place back after going for a big move earlier in the race, and locking the rears, wasn't quite able to pull it off. He's after redemption this time, and Jay Cool, usually a very, very competitive driver, but not looking at home at the moment in the Corvette. Just getting a little bit of oversteer on every corner exit, and not too confident on the brakes either. And Rivera going to try and use that to his advantage by looking to the outside, and again, Cool just unstable on the brakes, doesn't quite get the line into the first turn. But with a very wide line taken, he does keep the position on Rivera, but looks under threat at every possibility right now. No confidence in the car for Jay Cool.
Just going through some stats at the moment, because Ross Rizzo, according to my records at least, has not actually yet taken a race win in the Just Send It series. So quite hard to believe when you think about how long he's been around and how much racing he's done. We've seen that he's been competitive in the past, but yet to actually stand on the top step of the podium in a Just Send It race. He's doing a nice job out in front at the moment, leading by about 2.5 seconds over Dylan Shepherd. Christian Lindbaum in position 3 now, 5 seconds off the leaders. We see Marcelo Rivera up the inside of Jay Cool. Nice move from Rivera. He's up to P4.
Yes, indeed, and again, a little unstable on the brakes for Marcelo, just like he was a few laps earlier, but managed to pull it up in time and get the move done. A little bit of door banging between himself and Jay Cool, the job done. He actually apologized on the fish chat as well, communications between the two drivers. But they'll push on and try and now hunt down Christian Lindbom, who's running his own race in P3 at the moment, but may come under a little bit of pressure right now. Marcello, last lap around, almost a second faster as Eddie Beswick finds himself in a big scrap.
I just went back through the stats, and in fact, the best race result for Ross Rizzo was position 4. So not only would it be his first win if he was to bring it home tonight, but it would be his first podium.
Yes, indeed, it would be. But Andy Carey right now applying all kinds of pressure to the back of Eddie Beswick. These two are scrapping very hard indeed, as is the battle between Yeaman and Kobe Williams in front as well. This car's right now really scrapping it over. Look at Janssen up the inside right now, trying to make something happen on Mario Vartanian. And up to the inside goes the former race leader, and Mario unable to really defend that position in any way, shape or form. And Janssen will inherit that spot as long as he covers the inside. As Mario, I thought for a second, would have gone for the run up the inside. Wasn't able to do it though. So Janssen, another spot gained. The next target for him is championship leader Ryan Wood. Mitch McLeod finds himself in a big battle with Jonathan Bykoff. He's compromised on himself on the exit, but I think he might have just done enough to hold off Jonathan right now into this next section of corners. So a spot gained as well, or actually a spot defended, I believe, for Mitch McLeod at the moment.
Whenever the camera goes on to Mitch McLeod, you know that there's always going to be entertainment in spades. He was absolutely stoked to finally get his first just-ended race win last week, as we say that Simon Black's off the road. Let's see what's happened, as he made a mistake on his own, run a little bit wide. There was another car that was attempting to go around the outside. Simon Black defensive. Was there contact here? No, there wasn't. Simon Black just lost the rear of the car. We've seen a few incidents like that, haven't we, Bo, where people have probably just got on the power a bit too hard, too early out of that corner and lost the rear end.
Absolutely. It is one of the more stable GTE cars, but at the end of the day, it's a mid-engine car. If you are going to try and get too aggressive on the throttle, throw the weight distribution out a little bit, the car's going to only go one direction, and that's not forwards. It's probably backwards at a high rate of speed. So a lot of drivers find it out the hard way in today's race, and we'll see if any more drivers fall victim in the remaining 6 or 7 laps left in this race. It'll be very, very close as to which it falls. But right now, it is Ross Rizzo controlling the pace out front. Fastest car on track last lap around was Ryan Wood, and the driver in front did a 52.4 in Jay Cool. So Jay Cool is being hunted down right now by Ryan Wood, who's using a lot of track limits through the stadium section.
And also Marcello Rivera, a minute 50.8. He was quicker than the two cars ahead of him as well. So Marcello Rivera has the opportunity to challenge for a podium in the last 12 or so minutes, as we see that Jay Cool doesn't really make too much of a fight with Ryan Wood, and Wood gets that move done very, very comfortably indeed. So our championship leader back up inside the top 5.
Yes, indeed he is. And like you mentioned as well, Christian Lindbom not so comfortable with Marcello Rivera hunting down right now as well. The gap between them is coming down at a fast amount of speed. 1.2 seconds is the margin right now between these two. And Marcello has been getting that gap by about 0.8 of a second each lap. So it will only take about 2 more laps time. And sadly for Christian Lindbom, his mirrors, or should I say his little TV display screen, will be absolutely full of the number 28 Corvette.
Marcello Rivera's been on a bit of a charge, hasn't he, since the safety car restart. We've seen that he's been involved in a couple of exciting battles, but he's managed to avoid getting caught up in any incidents. And now that he's got a bit of clear track to work with, he's able to fully exploit the performance of that Corvette, and he's going to keep chipping away at the margin to Christian Lindbom in front of him. It's now down to less than a second with just under 11 minutes remaining on the clock.
Absolutely, Marcello Rivera, a very experienced sim racer indeed. Many will know him from the GT Academy days, which was run by Nissan. He was very competitive in that, and of course joined the Evolution Racing team. Great success there as well. So he is on an absolute charge right now. We'll see what's happened to Jonathan Bykoff into this very tricky chicane, very high speed. He goes, and Kobe Williams, I think that is behind, goes for a very aggressive lunge up the inside. I said it before, that's not a place to go for an overtake, but Kobe Williams proving me wrong. That was an absolutely perfect overtake.
Oh, well, Kobe Williams, he is well renowned for making overtaking opportunities where you don't normally find them. So and give him even the slightest sniff of an opportunity, and he'll take advantage of it. Now, Christian Lindbaum, if anything, has just responded a bit to the challenge being thrown down by Marcello Rivera. He was a little bit quicker through the first segment of this lap and has just opened up the gap to a bit over a second, but neither of these two drivers can become complacent because charging up behind them is Ryan Wood, and right now Ryan Wood is lapping more quickly than any of the drivers ahead of him on the racetrack. I don't think he's quite going to be fast enough to challenge for the win because he is 10 seconds behind our race leader Ross Rizzo, but another podium, which would make it 3 podiums from 3 rounds, is well within reach for Ryan Wood, that's for sure.
You'd have to say right now that Ryan Wood is just cheering on Marcello Rivera to try and catch Christian Lindbaum and then hopes the two just start scrapping away, which will make his life all the more easier. And someone whose life has not been easy all race long, it's been a bit of a difficult one for Jay Cool. Hasn't looked entirely comfortable in the car, maybe a bit of damage we can't quite see, but the confidence just hasn't been there. On corner exit, pushes wide in the gravel, and the car actually flipped quite violently and then into the wall very hard as well. And that was a big impact for Jay Cool there. And I appreciate the headlight flashing after the crash, but sadly for him, that's not helped his standings in the running order at all.
Probably a little bit impatient there, rejoining the track as well. After he had the first crash, he tried to accelerate back onto the circuit, but all he succeeded in doing was ricocheting back across into the wall on the other side of the circuit, and that has seen him drop down outside the top 10 as we see Eddie Beswick making a visit to pit lane. Here are 2 drivers who you can always rely upon to produce excitement, Mitchell McLeod and Kobe Williams. Let's see how this battle goes.
I'm glad you didn't ask me for a prediction on how this battle's going to go, because I wouldn't have an answer for you. When these two find each other on track, you never quite know what you're going to get. So a very interesting battle is about to come upon us here. Last lap around 7/10 of a second, the favour of Kobe Williams there. So the bright green Corvette is making some serious lap time at the moment, and it was actually just 3/10 off being the fastest car on track. So Kobe, plenty of pace, would be potentially a missed opportunity for him in today's race with the speed he has shown. But right now, hunting down Mitch McLeod for P number 8. This could get interesting very quickly.
One of the main focal points on the racetrack at the moment. We are keeping an eye on the times and the margins for our race leaders. Ross Rizzo still just managing the gap back to Dylan Shepherd. It sits at just under 3 seconds at the moment. Christian Lindbaum still just over a second ahead of Marcello Rivera. Ryan Wood slowly chipping away at those cars in front of him. Steve Jansen's actually not done a bad job. We saw that he was way down the order after that super long pit stop that he had after being caught out by the safety car, but he has fought his way back up into position 6, so not a bad recovery for Steve Jansen, but he would have been hoping for a bit more after leading the early stages, as we see that Kobe Williams has made the move. That's sort of becoming his favourite overtaking spot, isn't it? His trademark passing zone move through the final corner.
I'm not really sure how much of an overtake that actually was. In all honesty, Mitch McLeod gave him all the room in the world, held the door wide open and said, "Through you go, sir. Don't mind if you do. We'll get a replay up on screen." And Mitch didn't even put any kind of fight into that. He just let Kobe go. And I've got to say, Mitch, I'm a little disappointed in you there. We expected fireworks.
We're just hearing that perhaps he had a slowdown through the chicane, Mitch McLeod, so if that's the case, then that was actually quite sportsmanlike driving to get off the racing line and just allow Kobe Williams clear passage through.
Yes, indeed. So maybe some sportsmanlike behaviour from Mitch. So we'll see if we can get him, or see if we can get Kobe Williams back, and see if those two continue their scrap. 2 drivers that are continuing their scrap is Daniel Yeaman and Jonathan Bykoff, who find themselves on track over the top 10 position in this race. Only one of them will get it. One will finish outside the top 10. So this is a battle to keep your eye on right now. Yeaman is getting a much better line through the Schumacher S when Bykoff just missed the initial turn in just a little bit. So advantage right now, looking like Daniel Yeaman is looking a bit more of a hunter right now. And Bykoff looking a little under pressure as the hunted, as they find themselves onto the back straight. A good run though for Bykoff. May keep him out of trouble into the chicane, as the slipstream will only get you so far, so Daniel will have to sit behind for another lap. But right now, you can see just moving and faking to the inside. But what he's actually done there by actually faking to the inside, he's put his entry into the corner a little bit and allowed the driver of Jonathan Bykoff just to extend the margin a bit. So they will continue their battle for another few laps to go. Christian Lindbom continues to find himself under pressure from Marcelo Rivera behind. Last lap around, it was big time in the favor. Half a second to Rivera. So 3 laps to go on the clock here at Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. And Marcelo is not giving this up by any stretch of the imagination.
You can see both drivers using all of the road as well. They're pushing hard and they're both right on the limits, and just lurking there in the background as well, Ryan Wood. He's not out of this contest by any stretch of the imagination. All it will take will be one slight slip up between Lindbom and Rivera, and Ryan Wood will be right there ready to pounce. So this is going to test Christian Lindbom's resolve here to see if he can defend this position and hold on to his podium spot in the last 4 minutes.
Absolutely, and while we will just look at this battle, Jonathan Bykoff and Daniel Yeaman did find themselves swapping positions through the stadium section of the lap. So that battle has been resolved for now. So this is the battle to keep an eye on for position number 3 in this race. Is it going to be Lindbom or is it going to be Rivera? We've only got a few more laps to go. 2 laps will be left on the clock. It'll be very, very tight, being almost 3 laps, but it will be just 2 laps to go in this race. So Rivera, if he's got anything to attack the driver in front, he's got to do it very, very soon because the clock is running out very, very quickly. A fantastic run through the S's section though. He may have a bit of an opportunity here in towards turn number 1. How is the exit for these 2 drivers? I've got to say, Lindbom maximized his exit about as well as he possibly could have. So that is everything he needed to do. But Rivera has the slipstream. He's got the bravery on the brakes. We've seen that a few times. And that is very late on the brakes. He's exactly alongside, but not able to do it. Of course, how that profile of the corner works with the big dip on the very inside, you're actually sometimes better off not quite meeting the exact apex of that corner. So for Rivera, he wasn't quite on the ideal line. He is through this turn number 3 lap. That puts you on the wrong side of the circuit for turn number 4. Gets a great exit though, and they will go side by side, knocking mirrors off each other's cars in towards turn number 5. Contact! Lindbom is loose, and they're both off the road. A disaster for Lindbom and Rivera, and Ryan Wood at the death of the race takes a podium position, and heartbreak for Lindbom and Rivera.
And Ryan Wood says thanks very much. So he would have seen those 2 cars dicing ahead of him. And, well, that was just a case there, you would have to say, Bo, of them not leaving one another quite enough racing room. It was a hard-fought battle. You can see that Lindbom moved across to try and take what would have been the natural racing line, and he sort of ricocheted off Rivera, hit the curb, then bounced back into the door of Rivera. And that saw both cars bouncing across the gravel trap, and in Rivera's case, into the wall. And Lindbom looks like he's had a separate incident a bit further up the racetrack as well, so that'll be his night done as he exits back to the pits.
That's a very odd accident he's had as well. He's lost it completely on turning to the corner. There was no real factor there that should have really flicked the car around that fast. He wasn't on the grass, he wasn't on the curb, so perhaps just a lot of damage to that car has ruled him out of finishing this race. He is back in the pits now, so his day is unfortunately done, as we are looking at just 1 lap to go now as our race leader makes their way in towards turn number 1 for the last time. But what can the likes of Rivera and Jay Cool do? This is of course Jay Cool's chance of redemption on Rivera. You saw the driver Rivera try and pass Jay Cool twice earlier in this race. Got it done the second time, but now for Rivera, he's the one playing defense.
Yeah, and the concern for Rivera will be how much damage he sustained in that incident with Lindbom. Has it bent the steering? Has it done anything else to damage the performance of the car? And will he have any performance in reserve to be able to fend off the attack from Jay Cool for what will be the final position within the top 10?
Second place is extremely close at the moment between Dylan Shepherd and Ryan Wood. This is a battle that's kind of snuck up out of nowhere. And Ryan Wood has gone from getting a very shock podium to maybe getting up the inside at the massive curve here to try and get second place. Dylan Shepherd is maybe had an issue or had to fuel save in the dying minutes of this race, and it is on for young and old. He's slow out of the Schumacher S, and Ryan Wood has the speed, he's got the pace, Does he have the place? He does not. Contact with the back of Dylan Shepherd and off the road. He will go and Ryan Wood will redress the spot, but here comes Steve Jansen. He's going to go up the inside maybe of Ryan Wood. It's neck and neck. 3 cars, 2 spots on the podium. That doesn't go, so someone here is going to miss out. It's going to be Wood. Is it going to be Shepherd? Ross Rizzo is going to take his first Just Send It victory. Big congratulations there. Who is second? Who is third? Right now, it's Shepherd defending. It's Jansen up the inside. And now, Ryan Wood at the final opportunity gets it. Shepherd is out of fuel. Jansen gets third. What a finish, Lockie.
Wow, unbelievable there. So that was why Dylan Shepherd was so slow. He was obviously in serious fuel-saving mode just to be able to make it to the checkered flag. He's lost the podium at death and a massive pile-up on the finish line there as we see Mitchell McLeod go absolutely flying through the air and Kobe Williams as well. But Ross Rizzo, congratulations to him. Previous best race result of 4th, and he grabs his first Just Send It race victory tonight. And in terms of the championship, Ryan Wood, he's been on the podium in all 3 rounds that we've had so far. I know that it's early days yet, but you would have to say that he is doing everything that he needs to do to put together a very, very solid championship campaign in season number 5 of Just Send It. He finishes second. Steve Jansen, a case of what might have been for him our early race leader, buried down the field after a suboptimal pit strategy and a very long pit stop, but fights his way back to the podium. Dylan Shepherd, the car conks out at the death, but still manages to get home in 4th. Mario Vartanian, he had an up and down race, ultimately finishes in position 5. Mitchell McLeod in 6th, ahead of Kobe Williams. Daniel Yeaman and Jonathan Bykoff in 8th and 9th position. Marcello Rivera in contention for a podium in the late stages. Manages to get a top 10, but you'd think he'd be a bit disappointed with that.
Absolutely you would. Jay Cool had a bit of a tricky race himself as well, down in 11th place, but up 6 spots from his grid slot. Brenton Hobson was 2nd place after the safety car, found himself sadly in the gravel trap very soon after though, so recovers the P12. Andy Carey in 13th ahead of Tyson McAvoy and Aiden Brand, who we saw run into a few issues earlier in the race as well, so a good recovery to P15 there as well. Jane Russell in 16th ahead of Simon Black, Lee Burley, and Lee Burley, the last of our drivers on the lead lap, with Ian Quass and Christian Lindbaum in position 20, another driver of what could have been.
Starting to get back into the drivers involved in incidents. Eddie Beswick, 2 laps down in position 21. Jamie DeRoz in at position 22. And then retirements from the race. Nick Scaraju, Michael Heatley out of the race as well. Joel Chigavazira in position number 25, officially ahead of Jackson Griffith. Pete Dunham, John Quass, Matt Lupino was an early retirement, and so too was Tim Mitchell.
And Liam Matheson, the last of our drivers, not quite classified, but one driver that was classified and would have thoroughly enjoyed tonight, Ross Rizzo. At last, he finally gets a Just Send It victory, Lockie.
Indeed he does. Hard to believe that it's his first podium when you think of the number of these races that he's done, but very, very well done to Ross Rizzo, and you would have to say a very exciting debut for the Corvette GTE car on the Just Send It platform. We'll be back next week for more Just Send It action. Same time, same channel. You'll be watching it right here on the SimSpeed TV network. Thanks to everybody for your company this evening. Big thank you to my co-commentator Bo Albert and Jay Kennedy on production duties in the background. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Lockie Mansell. See you next time. Bye for now.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?